who here knows this guy? Sydney George. George is our New South Wales correspondent. He's been a little bit absent from the show lately, and that's really just been because of all the debacle of the studio and getting everything back up and running and getting things smooth again. So we are very happy to have Sydney George back. We conducted an interview a little bit earlier today, just speaking about New South Wales, the state of affairs. What do the prospects look like for the new Premier, Dominic? So without further ado, I've got the interview here with George. I'm going to play that for you right now. All right, we are joined by Sydney George. George, welcome back to the show. We have missed you tremendously. So let's get stuck straight into it. Now, George, we've seen some huge changing of events in New South Wales. We saw your Premier step down and also the Deputy Premier. So first of all, would you mind commenting on that and also commenting on Dominic, who's actually set to take Gladys's place?
All right. I think Dominic Perrottet is going to be a good leader. What I can see so far, only time will tell if he's going to pull through and promise what he delivered, that he wants to open New South Wales up and doesn't want these restrictions in place. So let's see if he can deliver.
Yeah, a lot of us will be really curious to see what he does. Can you tell us a little bit about Dominic, what he's done in the past, and can you tell us a little bit about what he claims to stand for?
All right, Dominic claims to stand for conservative principles. There's not many conservatives left in the Liberal Party. A lot of them are progressives and moderates. So it was amazing that he could work with the moderates to actually form a government, with Stuart Ayres being his deputy, who's a moderate. And Matt Keane, who's really big into renewables. He should be a member of the Greens Party, not the Liberal Party. And he's going to be the treasurer taking Dominic's old role. So it's going to be interesting to see what deals did he make or do in place to pull this off.
Yeah, definitely. Now, it's often pretty hard to know truly where various politicians stand, but where do you think Dominic stands on things such as lockdowns and mandatory vaccinations?
Tanya Davies released a statement by Dominic Perrottet the other day, to say that you were born free, that it's not the government's role to give you freedom. So we want to see, does he really stand for people's medical freedoms and freedom of speech and freedom of expression? Because the Liberal Party went totally against their principles when they were putting these hard lockdowns by Gladys Berejiklian and John Barilaro. So I reckon those two former leaders hit the eject button before things go bad.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I've seen him speak out against extended lockdown, so it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. Now, talk to us a little bit more about the state of affairs in New South Wales. The government announced that supposedly life will go back to normal, I think, in a matter of weeks. Now, is life going to go back to normal for everybody, or will it go back to say a quote COVID normal only for the vaccinated?
We'll go to COVID normal for the vaccinated for about, say, up to 6 weeks nearly, because at December the 1st, the New South Wales government with the map to freedom said that everything will go back to normal at December the 1st for the unvaxxed as well too. So there will be no more restrictions in place, but we have to see, are they going to be true to their word when they say about this? So they got their 70% target, they got their 80% target, but out of those two targets, the people that didn't take the jab are going to be still treated like second-class citizens, Morgan.
So, what does this mean for workers? They're saying no more restrictions, but will there be restrictions in place for workers who have been directed to get the jab, such as people in the transport industry?
You got the transport industry only if they live in LGAs of concern. There's about 12 of them. But if I lived in Penrith, which only certain suburbs fall under that areas of concern, I can live in Penrith and do whatever I want. But if I lived in St. Clair, which is still inside Penrith's LGA, you still fall in the same jurisdiction of someone that lived in Cumberland or Blacktown Council. So that means if you have to leave your LGA as an authorised worker, you have to have at least one dose, Morgan.
I see what you mean. Okay, so the mandates are they're imposing are somewhat based on area, but of course, people in the transport industry, they travel all over the place. So, have you seen any action from the Transport Workers Union in relation to these mandates or anything like that?
The Transport Workers Union didn't put an official memo out what we've seen the CMFEU up at Queensland. There was a coalition of them up there with the electrical trade unions and the plumbers union saying any employer that puts these mandates, they're going to stand up for their members. But we didn't see anything from the New South Wales TWU, but we've seen something with the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union that did put a statement up there saying that no one should be coerced. So I'm still waiting to hear what the TWU is going to say in regards to this, because most truck drivers live in the LGAs of concern, Morgan.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. All right, just a couple more questions. What's your prediction? Do you think Dominic is going to work towards scrapping these mandates for workers, or do you think he'll leave them in place?
I'm going to be an optimist. I'm hoping that he does, that he delivers true to his word. So only time will tell, Morgan.
True, I guess only time will tell. All right, before we wrap it up, George, do you have any words for the people of Victoria before we end the call?
I'd like to say thank you to all the Victorians that stood up against these vaccine mandates. What we've seen the CMFEU members stand up in front of the their union house down there in Melbourne. But what we've seen John Skector do with his other union officials spraying fire extinguishers and fire hydrant hose on their members, that's absolutely appalling, Morgan. That's all I've got to say.
Absolutely. Sydney George, it is awesome to have you back. You are a huge part of this show. Thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to having you back on the show really soon.
All right. Thanks, Morgan. Too easy. Cheers.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So thank you very much to Sydney George. Great to have you back, and I know that the MCJ audience is very glad that you're back.